What's up guys, this is John with Skate Better, and today we're doing the Lakai Cambridge shoe review. So why did I decide to pick up this shoe? I've definitely seen it around, I've seen people skating it, I've seen it a lot on shoe websites, so CCS, Tactics, Skate Warehouse, almost everyone carries this. I've seen it in store at Zoomies from time to time, and I remember always really liking the way it looks, and then for some reason when I see it on skaters, it is usually like a younger crowd that's wearing them. And with the occasional Lakai skater in like a Lakai video, I know have skated this, but I don't see a lot of pro skaters wearing this shoe. So I was really interested to give it a shot and see how it felt. I picked it up for around 65 bucks. I know you can find it for anywhere between 50 and 70 bucks right now, but I really like this colorway. I was looking for a shoe to skate that was white and essentially a neutral color so I could wear whatever with it. And I remember finally seeing the Cambridge come out in this white and black color and thinking like, that's my shoe. I'm gonna go ahead and snag it. And I'm glad I did. So as for the size, I usually get a size 8.5. That's what I'm skating now. And I got an 8.5 in these and it was perfect. It fit the way that I like my shoes to fit. A very, very little bit amount of room in the toe box, but then eventually stretched out to the perfect size. So I would go ahead and get your regular size, whatever size you normally skate, and I think it'll be on the money. So the next thing I want to talk about is the shape of the shoe. Overall, it's a pretty general shape. There wasn't anything too crazy going on, no crazy bells or whistles. It does have somewhat of an average toe box, so it's not wider, but it's not super narrow either, which worked out really, really well for my foot, so hopefully you can see this. There's not too much going on. Once again, it's just an average kind of shape for the outsole. What I will say is it's a lower profile shoe. I think in some of the pictures it looks like it's gonna be real puffy because of the tongue, or not really puffy, but it looks like it could be puffier because of the tongue when it sticks up like this, but it's really not. The way that it lays on your foot, the tongue actually lays kind of flat, and it's not so much of like a slip-on feel, but it is kind of like a Vans Old School or something around that area. So just know it's not gonna be like a mid or high profile, it's definitely gonna be a lower profile shoe. So next thing, let's talk about the break-in time of this shoe. I remember putting this shoe on after skating the Nike Blazer Mids was the last shoe, and immediately feeling like, wow, it had better board feel, it definitely was flexible right out of the box. Specifically from the mid up, it has a ton of flexibility. So break-in time, I would say right away for this half of the shoe. The toe does break in a little bit more because it's this lovely suede. And a lot of people say Lakais are like wearing a moccasin. And I think I definitely understand why people say that now, because this actually feels like moccasin material for some reason. So it really breaks in right away, kind of. It didn't even really feel like from here forward needed to break in. I would say that it opens up a little bit more. The biggest thing I would say that broke in was actually the sole, which is weird because I've never had a shoe like sink in before. So I took the stock insoles out and I put the footprint insoles in. And I would say after the first week, the sole actually broke in to where my foot was sitting a little bit lower in the shoe. And that was actually a good thing. And I'll explain why later, but just know the sole breaks in a little bit. From here back, it definitely took about, I'd say, a week and a half to get really flexible. But overall, this shoe is pretty much ready to go right out of the box. So as far as break-in time, it's good to go. So next, let's talk about the durability of the shoe. I did not expect this shoe to last very long durability-wise because it didn't seem like it had a lot of protection. There's no ollie pad, there's like a light vulcanization going around here to give you some flick, but other than that, there's a lot of mesh in this shoe. So there is this suede that kind of goes here and then wraps around a little bit in this area, but other than that, it's basically mesh. So that was a good thing when it came to breathability. But for durability, once again, there's not too much going on. I would say if you're a hardcore skater or you skate 5 days a week, this shoe is probably gonna last you average shoe time. So for most people, I think it's about like 2 months is what they get out of a shoe, even with shoe goo. Here's what I think will happen. This thing right here, once again, there's not too much going on. However, it is ripping a lot in this kind of like outer suede, but I can't poke through with my finger yet because there's another layer on the inside of the shoe that's like a really thin, it feels like a suede also, but it runs through the inside. So that is actually holding up really, really well. And even when I press out right now, it doesn't feel like it's gonna break in. It feels like it's gonna take longer. Although I just today started to rip completely underneath this top layer of suede. And it's been about 2 months of skating this shoe. So once again, hardcore skater, I don't know if it's gonna last that long, but I will say that for me, it's holding up well. I have a lot of wear and tear in my ollie spot in this kind of like a heel flip area back here. The laces ripped once, so they just ripped last week, but I went a whole 2 months without skating them. And I think that once again, because the laces sit a little bit higher and in, it doesn't rip that much. It did rip right here. If you're wondering, it ripped on the top eyelet. But other than that, the durability, this shoe seems to be holding up well. The other thing I'll mention is the sole of this shoe. So this area right here is getting really slippery. There's not too much grip left. If you can see, it's kind of like a hexagon shape, similar to like a lot of Adidas' soles I know use this similar hexagon tread. New Balance, I think, uses like a hexagon on some of their shoes. And it felt really, really good at first. You could see it's even kind of like got a different pattern going on right where you need the most traction. However, it didn't last very long. This actually went away in like the second week. It started to get really smooth. And although I will say the shoes do have a good amount of grip on them still, it does feel a little bit more slippery in that area, and I'm not loving that right now. The sole might break down pretty quick, but other than that, it's lasting a lot more than I thought it was going to, especially since most of this shoe is just mesh with like some overlayers of suede. So durability, you're gonna have to see for yourself. Not the best, I would say, but definitely not the least, and surprisingly more than I thought. So next I'm gonna run through a few things. I'm gonna run through impact, board feel, and flick. So impact, it doesn't have impact protection. I remember putting on this shoe after the Nike Blazer, once again for the first time, feeling it had a lot of flexibility, but then instantly feeling like it had no protection. So not a lot of impact. That was to be expected. It is supposed to be more of like a board feely kind of shoe, and it's not supposed to be for jumping down gaps. It's vulcanized. So I wasn't too surprised. However, it had even less protection than I'd say the Nike SBs had. So coming off my ankle injury, I didn't love that. It didn't give me a lot of confidence is what I would say. However, since it did have a lot of mobility and a lot more mobility than the other shoe, it felt really, really good for tricks that require ankle mobility, like kickflips and things like that. But overall impact protection, I would give it like a 3 out of 10, 3 or 4 out of 10. It may be the worst impact protection I've had since the slip-ons, the Adidas slip-ons, the match courts. But you know, once again, I wouldn't jump down gaps in it. It's not a gap skating shoe, so I think that's fair. Let's talk about board feel. This shoe has really good board feel. I would give the board feel an 8 out of 10 in this shoe. I definitely think if you're looking for a technical shoe, this would be a good shoe for you. So board feel, 8 out of 10 for sure. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is the flick. And I'm gonna show you my switch foot because there's not too much going on. It looks pretty clean. So it's got this nice vulcanized wrap going around the front of the toe. And as to be expected, it wore down pretty smooth after about the first, I'd say, 2 weeks of skating. But there's still a little bit left on this edge here. And I would say that it hasn't affected the flick at all. The flick still feels pretty good. It's not the best flick. I would say like the City Cups were amazing, the Adidas City Cups, because they have like a really thick layer around here, and I actually like that for flicking shoes, but you might not. So just know that it's not a super crazy vulcanized wrap. It's a little bit less than like a Vans. I keep comparing it to Vans, I don't know why. I think maybe because like I feel like a lot of people skate Vans and that's relatable. But anyways, it's not a super crazy out there vulcanized strip. It's like a medium to light. However, it breaks in really, really well. And what I love is for some reason, usually when I have this vulcanized going on, I'm getting like rips in this area, but I got nothing. I got nothing going on there. And I did a decent amount of flicks or kick flips in this shoe. So I would say the flick is great. 8 out of 10 for the flick also, and it definitely seems to be wearing well. I think I could keep skating it, keep doing flick trips for like another week and I'd be fine. So I want to talk about some general pros and cons next, and then my final thoughts. Pro, it's super, super breathable. So I remember right when I put it on, coming from those Nike mids, being a hot shoe with leather, these felt amazing. They're super light, my foot really breathes in them, and once again, most of the shoe is mesh. So it has mesh paneling completely on this side, mesh paneling completely on this side up to the suede. All of this is lined with mesh. And then also the toe right here, this is clutch. This little piece of mesh here, clutch. You want that in your shoe. That allowed my toes to breathe and felt really, really good. So breathability, amazing. I'd say the biggest con of the shoe would be the heel. And what I mean by that is this right here. When I put it on the first time, I immediately felt like my heel was gonna slip out. And what I mean by that is I like heels that either come up a little bit higher than this or that are actually angled forward. And a lot of Adidas shoes do that. A lot of skating shoes do that in general, but these do not. It's a very short heel. It doesn't go up very high and there's no angle, and my ankle did not feel secure. It didn't feel like, it felt like my foot was gonna slip out for the first week for sure. I tied it down super tight, and I remember still feeling like it wasn't enough. I will tell you that putting the afterstock insoles in, so the footprints being a slightly thicker insole, made it worse. However, if you remember what I was saying at the beginning of this video, where the sole actually sunk in a little bit more after the first 2 weeks, it started to feel better after 2 weeks of skating. So after a couple weeks, the sole like sunk in a little bit and my insoles went in a little bit further and it felt more secure, but I still didn't love it and it definitely affected my confidence. So my biggest feedback in this shoe, Lakai, is make that heel more secure. Like lift it up or push it forward or whatever you gotta do. But yeah, it didn't feel great. So the last thing I want to talk about is the tongue of the shoe. And if you remember, I was saying that the tongue looks really puffy, like it's gonna be this nice puffy cushy tongue. And when I got it, I remember thinking, okay, it has some cushioning to it, but it's not as puffy as I thought. So what I mean by that is the tongue comes up to like a normal tongue spot and it's got a little bit of cushion to it, but then when you go past this like initial, like from where the bottom of my finger is here, like down the shoe, it actually gets a little bit thinner. And it still has like puffy mesh on the inside, but it just wasn't as much as I would have liked. I would have liked a little bit more. I will say when you tighten the shoe down, it actually feels really nice because it does have that padding, but I would have loved a little bit more. And what I really would have wanted was the tongue to come up a little bit higher. So like this, the bottom of this Lakai thing right here, I would have loved that to be a little bit higher. And what that would have done is allow me to secure my laces down more and really feel like my foot was secure and anchored in, especially with the heel thing. So that was just something to note, knowing that the tongue, or thinking that the tongue is gonna be puffy when it's actually not as puffy as you may think. So just know that when you get the shoe. So final thoughts, would I skate this shoe again? I would say right now, probably not, but the only reason for that is because the heel. And to me, that's kind of a big deal. If my foot doesn't feel secure in the shoe, huge lack of confidence, doesn't feel good on certain tricks, and yeah, that was a deal breaker for me. If the heel was a little bit higher, a little bit more angled, I might actually consider skating the shoe again in another color. I like the way it looked. I know Lakai's slogan is Lakai or die. I could see how they would have a really serious and loyal fan base because the shoe is made very well. It's definitely made for skateboarding. It feels like it's made for skateboarding. And it's a pretty comfortable shoe, besides the fact that it doesn't have a lot of impact protection. So Lakai, you fixed the heel for me. I'll definitely consider picking it up again. You might love this shoe, and I'm not trying to knock this shoe. I'm just giving you my own personal thoughts on what I thought. So you guys can pick it up, decide what you think, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. So that's gonna wrap up this video. I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I did include a few small flat ground basic tricks so you could see what this shoe looks like when you're skating it, but that's about it. If you guys did like this video, please like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you next time.